Hello, everyone, and welcome to Career Q&A with All Faiths Children's Advocacy Center. I'm your host, Vanessa Garzone, the HR generalist and recruiter here at All Faiths. I'm here with Chelsea Pennington, the Director of Placement Services. All Faiths has been a part of the Albuquerque community since 1956, growing and changing, but always abiding by our mission that we are the trusted advocates for children and families that have been affected by trauma. I'm proud to say that as an organization, we are constantly evolving and changing with our community's needs and have so many wonderful programs. Career Q&A is an opportunity to spotlight these amazing programs, talk to someone from All Faiths, and we always encourage people to ask questions and to follow up with us. One of our programs that we are spotlighting today is our Placement Services Director. To talk to us about this program today, please welcome our Director of Placement Services, Chelsea Pennington. Chelsea, hi.
Good afternoon, Vanessa.
Hi. So Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us. You have been a part of All Faiths for almost 8 years now. So talk to me about your journey with All Faiths.
Okay, I started my career at All Faiths in 2017, and when I came to All Faiths, I started as a clinical assessment therapist. So the clinical assessment therapist is the first point of contact for clients coming in to receive services. I completed the initial intake assessments and determined diagnoses for children and their caregivers who are seeking mental health services. And then from there in 2019, All Faiths started the Placement Services Department. And under this department is adoption services. And so I transitioned into the role of the adoption services supervisor. And that's where I helped start up, develop, and grow the adoption program. And that included supervising our clinicians and case managers that were providing support under this program. And then in 2022, I started in my current role as the Director of Placement Services, where I oversee our several programs, including adoption, therapy, case management, home studies, and Fiesta.
Wow. So that's quite a bit of programs that you oversee. So in the Placement Services Department, you talked a little bit about it. Talk to me about your department as a whole, the Placement Services Department, and the responsibilities that it holds.
Sure. So the Placement Services Department is comprised of several programs, and we're really centered around providing supports and services for foster care, adoption, and then post-adoption support. So we provide support throughout the adoption process or the adoption of the process of becoming a foster parent, which includes training, education, preparing families for adoption, and resource parenting, as well as support throughout the process of when the child is placed in the home. And then we offer indefinite post-placement support and post-adoption support. So all of the services in our program are open to kinship families as well as adoptive families. So we provide a lot of support for grandparents raising grandchildren, those kind of situations. And all of our supports and services are offered statewide. And I can provide a little bit more information about each of the pieces under that program.
Oh my gosh, please.
So a lot of our programs are contracts that we have with the New Mexico Children, Youth, and Families Department. And so the first one is our CYFT home study contract. So under that contract, we provide home studies for families that are wanting to become foster parents. And CYFD uses the term resource parents. And then this contract allows us to complete home studies for families. It's another one that's statewide. And we have home study providers that work for us that reside throughout the state of New Mexico to work with these families. And a very brief explanation of a home study is that a home study is essentially a thorough assessment of a family's functioning and stability and their readiness to provide care for children who've experienced trauma, abuse, or neglect. Also through our private adoption program, we support families who are wanting to become adoptive parents, either for newborns or for older children. So during this process, we're providing education about the challenges and rewards of parenting through adoption. We're ensuring that our families have education about what a birth parent is experiencing and going through when they're considering adoption. And All Faiths highly values open adoption. So we talk a lot about open adoption and the benefits of open adoption. And we do the same home study process with the families that we're licensing for adoption that we do with any family that wants to become a foster parent. So the process is really similar for that. So through our private adoption program, we also support families who want to adopt older children that have been in the foster care system. So they get the same training and education, but we tailor it a bit more to specialized parenting techniques to meet the needs of children who've experienced abuse and neglect. And then we offer a lot of post-adoption supports. So we offer case management, individual therapy, family therapy, and group therapy. And these are all specifically focused on caregivers that are parenting through adoption, kinship, or guardianship. And our clinicians that are providing this support have specialized training in therapeutic modalities that are targeted to the unique dynamics of foster care and adoption. So those are dyadic developmental psychotherapy and TBRI, which is trust-based relational interventions.
Wow. Okay.
And then, of course, there's the case management aspect that we provide support for families with financial resources, housing, legal and court support, parenting skills and development, transportation, services that are offered through case management. And then another program we have is Fiesta. Fiesta is another contract with CYFD. And Fiesta is more of a peer support model than a clinical model. All of our family advocates that work for Fiesta are adoptive parents themselves. And so they can really relate in that peer support way. Fiesta offers opportunities for adoptive families and resource families to come together and build that community across the state. So Fiesta offers support groups, networking events, trainings. We have a lending library of books and videos that are available to adoptive parents, children, and professionals who work with adoptive families. And then we also have a warm line, which is for families who are parenting through adoption or are foster parenting. They can call and talk with one of our advocates if they're experiencing, for example, a behavioral issue with a child that they're wanting some support and guidance around.
That's wonderful. So Chelsea, help me out with some of the terminology. What does it mean to be a birth parent, an adoptive parent, or a resource parent?
That's a good question. So a birth parent is a term that it's typically used in adoption situations. A birth parent is the biological parent of the child that's being placed for adoption, or in the adoption community, we call them the adoptee. A birth parent might choose to make a plan of adoption for their child during the time that they're pregnant or at the time of birth. They could also make a plan of adoption for an older child that maybe they've been parenting for a while, but we typically encounter that less often. The birth parents that we work with, we always hold them in high regard. They're really making a difficult and thoughtful decision and really considering the best interest of their child. When we talk about adoptive parents, the adoptive parent is the legal parent of a child through the adoption process. So in order for an individual to become an adoptive parent, they have to complete all of the legal requirements necessary, the home study to be approved to adopt a child that's not related to them. And then when an adoption is finalized, the adoptive parents assume all rights and responsibilities for caring for a child, the same rights and responsibilities as if that child were born to them.
Oh, okay.
And then a resource parent is essentially interchangeable with the term foster parent. So these are individuals or couples that want to provide temporary care for children that have entered custody of the state, often due to experiencing abuse or neglect. Resource parents are a vital support to children and their biological families. The main goal of resource parents is to provide a safe and stable environment for children while their biological families work a treatment plan with CYFD. And the ultimate goal is always for the children to be able to reunite with their biological families when those concerns that led to the CYFD involvement have been able to be addressed.
Okay.
So there's the kind of differences between those three terms.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining that. Offers a lot of clarity. So Chelsea, talk to me about the counseling process for birth parents. Where do you stop? When does your role in their process end?
Sure. So we provide counseling to pregnant women and their families that are considering making a plan of adoption for their child. We work to engage both the birth mother and the birth father, as well as any supports in their life that they want involved in the process. A birth parent can really reach out to us at any point in time to seek counseling and services. So in infant adoption, we can start working with the birth parent as soon as they find out that they're pregnant, all the way up to including the time of delivery and after delivery. We often do get calls from local hospitals that a woman has given birth, and that's the first time she's reaching out for support and services. And so we often start our process there with some of our birth parents. When we're doing birth parent counseling, our role is really to provide support and options, and then support them with resources for whatever decision that they might make about their pregnancy. So we support them if they decide to parent, if they decide to terminate the pregnancy, if they want a family member to care for the child, or if they ultimately choose adoption. So if a birth parent chooses adoption, we help match them with prospective waiting families that we have licensed. And we present them through profile books, but there's also the opportunity for a birth parent to meet and interact with our prospective adoptive families. And the birth parent really gets a choice in the family that she would like to parent her child. And so that's an overview of kind of the counseling process, but we also offer indefinite grief and loss counseling. So our process with birth parents never ends. If at any time they can come back and receive support around grief and loss and counseling, and all of that is free of charge. And we also offer indefinite support, especially in open adoption situations, to help navigate those relationships and interactions moving forward.
Okay. So why is post-adoption counseling for birth parents so important?
Yeah, we explain to all of our families, both the birth parents and the adoptive parents, that adoption is not just a one-time event that happens and it's over with. It's really a lifelong journey. So grief and loss can come up at any point in time. It might be triggered by other events in the birth parent's life, such as the birth of another child. And then if they're having an open adoption and they're having visits with the child, there's inevitably feelings that come up before in anticipation of those visits, and then after the visits that a birth parent might need some support and counseling around.
Okay. So what does crisis counseling for a birth parent look like?
Sure. We have an on-call phone line that is available for our birth parents 24/7. So we offer that support throughout the pregnancy and then after the pregnancy as well. So when we're working on adoption plans, we're often working with women who might be experiencing homelessness, domestic violence, substance use, mental health challenges, lots of different circumstances why women might consider a plan of adoption. So some of our crisis supports we offer include that case management. So we're helping them locate safe and stable housing. We're helping them with access to food and prenatal care. Um, so the birth parent can call us and get support with any of those on our on-call line. And it's also just emotional support as well. There's lots of strong emotions, and it's definitely a challenging decision for birth parents. So we want to have that availability to process their thoughts and feelings throughout the process. We also help when baby is being born at the hospital. We're often there at the hospital working with the mom, supporting her through the process, navigating hospital staff. Um, and so we have that on call for when mom goes into labor. We don't care what time of night it is. We're known to drive several hours in the middle of the night to go support a birth mom through the labor and delivery process. And because we offer that statewide support, sometimes we're driving a few hours away to go meet that mom and give her that support during that time.
Oh my gosh.
Most women tend to wait to reach out for support until the end of the pregnancy. So we most likely see women around like 8 months pregnant to start our support with them. That's when it really starts to feel more real and they know it's upcoming and they're reaching out for support. But again, we could work with a mom who is a few weeks pregnant or a mom who is already delivered. So that's why we have that on call phone so we can provide support when it's needed.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing crisis care. So Chelsea, at All Faiths, we are always talking about what is your why? Why do you come in with you? Why do you keep coming back through those double doors? So Chelsea, what is your why?
My why is because I feel like the work that we do at All Faiths really is life changing, especially in placement and adoption services. We have the unique opportunity to change the lives of not only the child that's being adopted, but also the birth parent and the adoptive family. Again, we're strong advocates for open adoption, and it's really valuable to see that ongoing lifelong relationship between the birth family and the adoptive family and the child, and that everybody has the same goal of supporting the child and focusing on what's in that child's best interest. So we get to see children going into safe and stable and secure homes while still being able to have that ongoing connection with their birth family. So that is my why of why I come every day. And despite the hard moments that we experience, the work is really rewarding.
So how does it all start? How can someone reach out to be an adoptive family or be a birth parent that uses the resources at All Faiths?
Sure. So, in regards to being an adoptive family could reach out for information in a few ways. They could look at our website. Our website is afadoptions.org, or they could call our office at All Faiths. And we also have an email address that they can email. It's info@afadoptions.org. And when we get an initial inquiry from a prospective adoptive family, we set up an orientation meeting, usually over Teams or Zoom, or we can have them come into the office and talk to them about the adoption process, answer any questions they might have, and talk to families about the requirements and process of being an adoptive parent. Um, we tend to recommend that adoptive parents might interview multiple agencies before selecting the agency they want to work with. Um, the adoption experience is really personal, and we call it sometimes intrusive through that home study process. And we want to make sure that adoptive families pick an agency that they're feeling comfortable with and secure with. For birth parents, they can call the on-call line. And so the on-call line is 505-313-1132. And that's available again 24/7 to birth parents and referral sources for birth parents, such as hospitals, clinics, or community providers that are working with birth parents that want to refer. And then as well, there's an inquiry form on our website that birth parents can enter their information and we will reach out to them that way.
Okay, perfect. And so for those of you watching, all of this information that Chelsea stated is going to be in below. And feel free to reach out to us, as Chelsea said. Chelsea, becoming an adoptive parent requires quite a bit of education. What education and training resources are available?
Yeah, I always recommend anyone who is interested in becoming an adoptive parent does their research. And so there's several ways to get training and education. So Fiesta has the lending library that I was mentioning about, and the lending library is full of books and resources about adoption. And so we have an online checkout system that any family can access that and those materials to start learning about adoption. We also offer a lot of trauma-informed trainings through the All Face Training Institute. So we have those events posted on our website as well. And those would give a lot of information about parenting children who've experienced trauma. There's also an organization called Families Rising, and they are solely focused on providing education, support, and advocacy for adoption. And then with our families that are going through the licensing process to become licensed adoptive parents with All Faiths, you're required to have 12 hours of training for that initial licensure. So we provide that to all of our families. And we talk about the birth parent experience. We talk about open adoption. We talk about the dynamics of transracial adoptions. So we provide a lot of training to our families that way as well.
Okay, perfect. Say that I am looking to become an adoptive parent. Where is the best place to start? Where do I look?
Sure. Like I said before, briefly, do your research. You want to ensure any agency that you are looking at working with has an active child placing agency license. So you can ask the agencies that you're interviewing for a copy of their license. Again, you can interview multiple adoption agencies, attend orientations, make sure you're really feeling comfortable and supported by the agency you want to work with.
So how does All Faiths connect adoptive families with financial and legal guidance?
Sure. So for financial guidance, the costs of adoption, we often help families research adoption grants. There's a lot of good options for adoption grants out there, both for private adoption as well as for adoption of older children, adoption through the foster care system. Regarding legal guidance, we, as an adoption agency, cannot provide legal guidance, but we collaborate with local attorneys that are experienced in adoption law. And so we often send referrals out to our families that are pursuing adoption to attorneys we know have significant experience in the ins and outs of adoption law. So a family can select the attorney of their preference, but we do send those referrals for adoption attorneys that we've worked with in the past.
As the Director of Placement Services, what is the impact that you strive to see in New Mexico families and children's?
Yeah, the ideal impact that I would like to see is that every child that's touched by adoption or foster care in New Mexico is able to find a safe, supportive, loving, and stable home where they can thrive and also have that connection to their roots and to their biological family.
Chelsea, what is your call to mission? What success story can you share that energizes you in your line of work?
I don't know if I can share just one success story,
Oh, I'll hear all of
but
them.
I can talk to you about overall successes.
Sure.
So stories of successful open adoptions always come to mind, and that's what really energizes me. Just really being able to see the relationships and the bonds that the families are able to develop and sustain over time, and how families can really come together to support the best interest of the child. Another aspect of our program that really stands out for me is those circumstances where a child might be at risk of entering the foster care system and a birth parent reaches out for support. We're able to provide that support and have alternate options and choices for the birth mom. So they're able to have a say in where their child goes, who their child goes to, and then they get to remain involved in that child's life through an open adoption.
That's so beautiful. Okay, so at this time, what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and read questions that we have had from the community about the adoption process and maybe career opportunities in child advocacy. So looking at one question. So Chelsea, how is All Faiths Adoption unique from other adoption agencies?
Yeah, I think we're unique because we have such a large array of services. So we have a lot of post-adoption services. We have therapists and case managers that are specifically trained in working with adoptive families and families who are providing kinship guardianship. And so then we can offer that lifelong support to birth parents as well as adoptive families. I think that's what really makes us unique as an adoption agency.
Chelsea, how can I, as a member of the community, support the Placement Services Department at All Faiths?
Sure. So I think there's a few ways that a member of the community could support placement services. The first one is always if you know of someone who's in need of support, reach out to us, refer that client to us, refer the birth parent to us. We would be happy to provide that support and counseling. Um, as I was mentioning earlier, a lot of our birth parents might be experiencing homelessness, lack of resources. So another way to support is always by providing donations for things like grocery cards, gas cards, gift cards for maternity clothing, feminine supplies. So really just reaching out to All Faiths for some of those donations is a way that a community member can support All Faiths.
Perfect. And so for our people that are watching, if you are interested in donating and being a support to our Placement Services Department, you would be contacting our Donor Relations Coordinator, Erin Moya. Her information and contact information will be below as well. All right, so as we wrap up, Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us. If you are interested in ever joining our team here at All Faiths, if you feel that you have passion, purpose, and a working understanding of your why, consider reaching out to All Faiths in order to make a difference in your community. We have rich benefits, PTO, and a company culture. We're always looking to hire more talent. So if this seems to be something that you would want to do, or if you have further questions, please feel free to reach out via our website at allfaiths.org or send us an email at recruitment@allfaiths.org. And feel free to keep a sharp eye on our Facebook postings. And finally, a special thanks to our Director of Marketing and producer, Regina Alderette. Without her brilliance and collaboration, none of this would be possible. So Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone for your time and attention. Tune in next time for our Career Q&A Spotlight.